The high school gymnasium was filled with the heavy scent of chemicals and nervous anticipation. Today marked the gene injection ceremony, the moment that would define every student's future status. The professor stood before the assembly, his voice echoing with a stern warning about the coming surge of power. One by one, the students stepped forward to receive the serum containing the primal genes of magical beasts. Screams and grunts of agony erupted as the primal energy began to rewrite their human DNA. Ye-Hee watched the chaos with a quiet intensity, his turn drawing closer with every heartbeat. He finally stepped to the medical chair and offered his arm to the cold touch of the needle. The glowing liquid was pressed into his vein, but the expected roar of power did not come. While others manifested claws and fangs, Ye-Hee's body remained disappointingly unchanged. A girl nearby began to laugh, her voice cutting through the silence as she pointed at the defective failure. Even the professor sighed, assuming the boy had simply received a faulty dose of the serum. But deep within Ye-Hee's soul, a digital interface flickered to life, far beyond the reach of human machines. Instead of one beast gene, he had unlocked the infinite monster template. As the mocking girl stepped closer to tease him, a wave of pure pressure suddenly erupted from his core. The bully was thrown backward by the sheer force, her laughter replaced by a scream of terror. Other students struggled to remain standing, as Ye-Hee's energy dominated the entire room. He looked at his hands, watching as electric blue scales flickered across his skin and then vanished. A notification chimed in his mind, announcing the successful synchronization of his first template. Suddenly, the loudspeaker crackled to life, demanding all awakened students report to the testing building. Ye-Hee walked toward the exit, his steps now carrying the weight of a predator among sheep. He entered the testing chamber, a room filled with advanced sensors and holographic displays. He watched as a student named Xinwan stepped up to receive his rank and bloodline results. The screen displayed a third-tier bloodline, the Swift Spine Bug, granting enhanced speed. Next was Chu, who awakened the rare Ice Demon Dragon, a top-tier bloodline that chilled the air. The faculty erupted in whispers when Miss Lu awakened a Stage 4 Nether Sparrow bloodline. Ye-Hee looked at his own system, noticing that his beast was ranked with a mysterious letter instead of a stage. Finally, his name was called, and he stepped into the main analysis chamber under 1,000 watchful eyes. A thick, oppressive pressure rolled off him the moment the sensors touched his skin. The machines began to whir and buzz, struggling to translate his unique energy into data. When the results finally loaded, they appeared deceptively weak to the uninitiated. The crowd erupted in mockery once again, believing he was just an average failure with a glitched scan. Ye-Hee simply smiled, realizing the testing machine was too primitive to recognize an infinite template. He understood now that he didn't follow their rules, he could upgrade his power without limits. A few days later, he stood in the teacher's office, requesting permission to study from home. His teacher frowned, assuming the boy was simply giving up on his martial arts career. Ye-Hee pleaded for the chance to prove himself, his eyes sparkling with a hidden resolve. Eventually, the teacher agreed, though he warned Ye-Hee not to get his hopes up for the entrance exam. Ye-Hee left the school immediately, heading straight for the Ansheng Warrior Center to begin his true training. He checked his funds, revealing over 1 million credits ready to be invested in his evolution. He had a clear choice to make: train as a warrior or maximize his monster compatibility. Something caught his eye in the system logs, showing extra compatibility points from the injection earlier. If serums could enhance his compatibility, then he could rise faster than any genius in history. He stepped into the facility, ready to purchase his first gene enhancement serum. Inside, the room was packed with powerful warriors, each radiating a heavy, beast-like aura. Ye-Hee's blood began to boil as his system recognized them as potential prey for his templates. He knew he was still weak, but the instinct to conquer ran deeper than his fear. Suddenly, a stylish woman tapped his shoulder, warning him not to stare at people so openly. He apologized quickly, realizing his instincts were becoming harder to control in public. She explained that gene medicine was effective but expensive, costing hundreds of thousands of yen. The price hit him hard, but he knew this was the only way to surpass the world's geniuses. The woman handed him a business card, offering a referral discount for his first purchase. From the shadows, a figure with glowing blue eyes watched him depart, sensing the potential within him. Ye-Hee spent the day buying weapons and serums, preparing for his first foray into a secret realm. Back home, he injected the serums, his muscles burning as his stats began to spike. For the first time, he felt he truly had a shot at dominating the coming college entrance exam. But real strength required real combat, and his sights were now set on the secret realms. These zones were ranked by danger, and E-Class was the standard starting point for rookies. Yehi arrived at Ansheng number 3, signing the death waiver without a moment's hesitation. He stood before the glowing portal, locking in his ambition to become the king of all beasts. With a final deep breath, he charged forward into the rift, leaving his human life behind. But as the energy swallowed him, a distorted roar echoed from the other side, hinting at a power he wasn't ready to face. The residue of the distorted roar still vibrated in Yehi's ears as the blinding ceremony light finally began to fade. He realized then that his power didn't follow the standard rules of bloodline tiers or martial stages. While others were limited to a single beast, the infinite monster template offered him a horizon without end. A few days later, Yehi requested to study from home, choosing to forge his own path away from the skeptical eyes of his teachers. He headed straight to the Ansheng Warrior Center, carrying the weight of his family's insurance payout and a mortgage on their home. Inside the facility, he scanned his ID, his senses immediately assaulted by the heavy auras of awakened warriors. His new ability, the Life Magnetic Field, allowed him to see the heat and pressure rolling off everyone around him. He sought out the Gene Medicine counter, intent on boosting his compatibility with the Mad Flame Demora template. A stylish veteran woman approached him, warning that these expensive serums were best used only during bottlenecks. Despite the staggering cost of 400,000 yen per dose, Yehi purchased what he could and prepared for the next step. Back in his room, he injected the serum, feeling his muscles burn as his stats spiked and his body mutated further. With his body reinforced, he set his sights on the Ansheng number 3 secret realm, a zone reserved for rookies. He signed the standard death waiver without a second thought and charged headfirst into the pulsing rift. He landed in a breathtaking landscape where the stars of distant planets seemed scattered across the sky. Suddenly, his life magnetic field detected a predator lunging from the long grass behind him. He caught the Bladefang rabbit midair and slammed it into the dirt with crushing force. He extracted a small magic core from the beast, realizing that even low-level hunts could be profitable. However, small gains wouldn't suffice. He needed to hunt something stronger to truly advance. A second-rank demon corpse bug emerged from the shadows, its mandibles clicking in anticipation of a meal. Recalling his studies, Yehi targeted the monster's soft abdomen as it fired a blast of energy. The battle grew fierce, and a sudden ranged attack from the bug sent Yehi crashing backward through the trees. Frustrated by his weak foundation, he finally activated the Mad Flame Demora bloodline. With power surging through his limbs, he struck with beast-like force, finishing the demon bug in one motion. As he stood over the corpse, a sudden primal hunger tightened his stomach. Despite the risks, he consumed the green core, feeling a burst of energy spread through his limbs. His system immediately updated, showing that magic cores were far more efficient than the expensive serums. Realizing he had wasted millions on pay-to-win potions, he decided to hunt through the entire night. By the next afternoon, his compatibility reached 9%, and his physical stats had climbed significantly. When he returned to the center, the receptionist stared in disbelief at the sheer number of cores he turned in. With 200,000 credits in his pocket, Yehi began preparing for a high-stakes desert mission. He used forged credentials to join a team as Dadsla, a level 9 martial disciple in disguise. He met his new teammates, a rugged group of veterans who looked at him with clear skepticism. They crossed into the desert realm, where the horizon was dominated by glowing planets and shifting sands. Without warning, a swarm of earth demon rats burst from the sand, chasing the vehicle with terrifying speed. He watched as a teammate named Hood unleashed bladed weapons, shredding the rats mid-chase. They finally arrived at a green oasis, where a Tier 2 earth dragon guarded the coveted bloodjade flower. Yehi waited for the perfect moment as his team engaged the beast with pheromone grenades. When the dragon lunged at his captain, Yehi leapt into action, landing a heavy energy punch that shook the earth. The team stared in awe at the supposed novice who had just grounded a Tier 2 monster with a single strike. But as they celebrated, a sharp blade suddenly pierced through the captain's back from behind. Hood revealed his true colors as a traitor, working with a notorious dungeon thief named Hoping. Hoping demanded the dragon's core, mocking Yehi as a mere student who was out of his depth. Yehi caught Hood's poison-laced daggers with his bare hands, burning them away with a surge of blue aura. He fired a piercing bolt of energy that tore through Hood's chest, ending the traitor's life in a flash. Hoping roared in rage, transforming into a towering tyrant black bear beast form to crush his new rival. Yehi channeled everything into his mountain-crushing fist, unleashing a barrage that pounded the beast into the dirt. He finished the thief with one final blow, leaving the remaining teammates in a state of utter disbelief. After securing the blood jade flower and receiving a grateful reward, Yehi returned to the city to prepare for the tournament. He had survived his first true test, but the path to becoming the king of beasts had only just begun. Yet, as he stepped back into the human world, a shadow from the Northern Commonwealth began to follow his every move. Yehi adjusted his hood as he prepared to enter the third secret realm of the week. He knew that his current identity as a student would only draw unwanted attention from the authorities. For 100,000 credits, he had secured the perfect alias, a lowly level 9 disciple named Dadsla. He approached a small squad led by a man named Linhee who was desperately seeking a replacement member. Linhee sized him up with a skeptical sneer, unimpressed by the newcomer's weak aura. Despite the insults, the team had no choice but to accept him as they boarded the armored vehicle. The portal shimmered as the rover accelerated, plunging them into a realm of endless sand. Huge planets hung low in the purple sky, casting an otherworldly glow over the shifting dunes. Suddenly, the ground began to vibrate as a swarm of earth demon rats erupted from the sand. A teammate named Hood leaped from the moving vehicle, drawing twin curved blades. He shredded the creatures with surgical precision, leaving only dust in the rover's wake. Yehi watched quietly from his seat, noting the lethal efficiency of Hood's combat style. The team reached a lush oasis hidden between two massive sandstone cliffs. Linhee ordered the group to move on foot to avoid alerting the guardian of the blood jade flower. They deployed a specialized pheromone grenade to lure the beast out of its hiding spot. A thunderous roar shook the oasis as a massive Tier 2 earth dragon charged toward them. Linhee struck first, his sword glowing with energy as he carved a deep wound into the beast. The dragon collapsed, and for a moment, the team cheered for their apparent victory. However, the dragon's tail suddenly whipped around, catching the distracted Linhee off guard. Yehi moved in a blur of motion, intercepting the blow with a single energy-packed punch. The impact sent the massive tail crashing into the ground, leaving the teammates speechless. Before any questions could be asked, a sharp blade suddenly pierced through Linhee's back. Hood stood behind his leader with a cold, murderous grin, revealing his true colors. A massive figure emerged from the shadows of the cliffs, carrying a sense of overwhelming dread. It was Huang, the notorious dungeon thief who had come to claim the team's spoils. Linhee struggled to stand, realizing that Hood's blades had been laced with a slow-acting poison. Hood laughed and told Yehi to run back to school before things got even uglier. Yehi simply stared back, his expression showing no trace of fear or hesitation. Hood lost his patience and unleashed a barrage of poisoned daggers at the young man. Yehi caught the daggers bare-handed, the poison burning away against his blue aura. Hood vanished and reappeared behind Yehi, attempting a devastating downward strike. Yehi responded with a bolt of crackling energy that pierced directly through Hood's heart. Huang's eyes widened as he realized the novice was far more dangerous than he appeared. He let out a roar of dominance and began his terrifying bloodline transformation. The tyrant black bear lunged forward, his massive paws shattering the ground with every step. Yehi channeled every ounce of his power into his fist for a final, mountain-crushing blow. The two forces collided, sending an explosive shockwave that flattened the surrounding trees. Huang was sent flying, crashing deep into the sandstone cliff until he moved no more. Yehi stood in the silence, his blue aura slowly fading as he surveyed the carnage. Yet as the portal reopened, a new feeling of dread washed over him from the outside world. The massive stadium lights flickered to life as the Anqing martial arts tournament officially commenced. Thousands of spectators filled the stands, their cheers creating a low rumble that vibrated through the concrete floors. The announcer's voice boomed over the speakers, explaining the brutal knockout format of the entrance exam. Yehi stood alone in the dark tunnel leading to the arena, his expression unreadable as he checked his stats. On Arena 6, a girl named Huang waited impatiently, crossing her arms as the clock ticked toward a forfeit. Suddenly, the clouds above the stadium split apart as a streak of blue light descended like a meteor. Yehi crashed into the center of the arena, sending a shockwave of dust and debris flying into the stands. Before the dust could even settle, he launched forward with a speed that left afterimages. A single kick connected with Huang's jaw, propelling her across the platform and out of the ring instantly. The crowd fell silent for a heartbeat before erupting in a deafening roar of disbelief. The tournament bracket updated on the giant monitors, flashing Yehi's name as he advanced to the next round. In the following matches, he defeated opponent after opponent with the same singular devastating strike. Spectators began chanting a new nickname for him, calling him the one-kick Superman of an in-city. University scouts from across the country watched from high-tech observation booths, scribbling notes frantically. He ignored the offers, his heart set only on the most prestigious Huadu University. An official re-evaluation of his power level shocked the judges when his rank jumped from 3rd to 9th in weeks. While other students celebrated with their parents, He stood alone in the shadow of the arena walls. His next opponent was Luo, an elite fighter who mocked He's low-born status the moment they stepped out. Luo activated his bloodline, his arms transforming into jagged lightning claws that crackled with electricity. He stood perfectly still as the lightning claws lunged toward his face, his eyes following every movement. He caught Luo's wrist with one hand, twisting the arm until the elite fighter cried out in pain. With a powerful slam, He drove Luo into the floor, shattering the reinforced tiles into 1,000 pieces. Across the stadium, the unattainable flower Lu Qingju made her entrance, surrounded by an aura of cold grace. She dominated her own matches, using the Nether Phoenix bloodline to unleash waves of purple flame. The semi-final was set, and the entire city held its breath for the clash between He and Lu Qingju. As the bell rang, He ignited his aura, his body becoming a blur as he charged at the Phoenix user. Lu Qingju redirected his strike with an enchanted feather, her battle instincts far superior to anyone he had faced. She warned him that she might lose control of her strength as her eyes began to glow with intense fire. He roared, unleashing a concentrated beam of nuclear energy from his mouth that sliced through the arena air. Spectators ducked as the energy scattered, hitting the stadium's defensive barriers with explosive force. The mayor of N-City stepped onto his balcony, raising his hand to reinforce the barrier with his own power. Lu Qingju fell to one knee, blood trickling from her hand as her strongest defense finally shattered. Memories of her family's strict expectations flooded her mind, the weight of their legacy threatening to crush her spirit. In a final burst of defiance, she unleashed her full transformation, her wings flaring wide with lightning and flame. He met her in the sky, his own form becoming a shadow of elemental force as their blows collided like thunder. He caught her final attack mid-air, gently redirecting her energy before she could completely collapse from exhaustion. He landed softly and shared some of his mana to help her recover, promising to fight her again when she was at her prime. The announcer declared He the winner of the semifinal, his name now echoing through every street of An-City. The final match against Chu began, with the sword user summoning a giant ice dragon that towered over the entire stadium. He shattered the ice mountain with a single fist, his nuclear-charged power leaving the audience in complete awe. Chu surrendered after realizing the gap in their strength, acknowledging He as the undisputed champion. The stadium erupted as He was handed the championship trophy, but his mind was already on the next challenge. A mysterious man in a black suit approached He in the locker room, holding a confidential file on his father's past. The file contained an image of a divine being named Prometheus, tied to a secret national project. Yet as the portal to the secret realm reopened for the final trial, a new feeling of dread washed over him from the outside world. The sky above N-City turned a sickly shade of purple as the spatial rift expanded. Sirens began to wail across every district, signaling a catastrophic beast tide. He stood on the edge of the tournament arena, his eyes fixed on the horizon. A thunderous roar shook the foundations of the city, shattering windows for miles. From the depths of the forest outside the walls, a massive silhouette emerged. Thousands of lower-ranked monsters poured out like a dark, living carpet. He checked his system interface, seeing the mission alert flash red. The city guard deployed their heavy artillery, firing beams of concentrated mana. Explosions rocked the front lines as the first wave of beasts hit the defenses. Despite the firepower, the sheer number of monsters was overwhelming. He leaped from the rooftop, his body trailing blue sparks of energy. He activated the earth-shattering tremor template, increasing his weight 100-fold. He landed in the center of the horde, creating a massive crater that sent monsters flying. Without pausing, he summoned the frost wolf claws and began a whirlwind of steel. Each strike froze the air around him, turning blood into crimson ice. Suddenly, a massive shadow fell over the entire sector. The sovereign black ape jumped into the city, landing on the main bridge. Thousands of tons of concrete collapsed into the river as the beast roared. The city's top martial artists rushed to intercept, but were swatted away like flies. He realized that if the sovereign wasn't stopped, N-City would fall by morning. He consumed 3 rare fire element cores to temporarily boost his lava behemoth template. Steam began to rise from his skin as his temperature spiked to lethal levels. He propelled himself forward using explosive bursts of steam from his heels. The sovereign black ape noticed the tiny glowing speck flying toward its head. The ape swung its massive obsidian fist, creating a vacuum in its wake. Yehi swapped his template to Void Phantom at the last microsecond. The fist passed right through him, obliterating 3 buildings behind him instead. Now on the ape's shoulder, Yehi reverted to his molten form and drove his hand into its neck. The monster howled in agony as molten energy flooded its internal systems. The ape grabbed Yehi with its other hand, squeezing with enough force to crush diamonds. Yehi's bones groaned under the pressure as he activated Diamond Turtle Shell. He realized he needed a finishing move, one that combined all his current masteries. Infinite Fusion, Starbreaker Strike, he yelled, focusing every ounce of mana into his forehead. A pillar of white light erupted, piercing through the ape's skull and reaching the clouds. For a moment, the entire city fell silent as the light slowly faded. The sovereign black ape's body turned to ash, scattering in the wind. Yehi fell from the sky, landing heavily on a pile of rubble. The monster tide began to retreat as their leader's presence vanished. But as Yehi closed his eyes, he heard a strange mechanical ticking coming from the ape's remains. Deep within the ashes, a small metal device pulsed with a familiar, sinister energy. Suddenly, his system notification chimed with a warning he had never seen before. The screen read, "Unauthorized template extraction in progress. Target city, Huadu." He looked toward the capital city, realizing this beast tide was merely a distraction for something much worse. A cold voice whispered in his ear from the shadows, "The real game begins at the university, Yehi." The cold whisper from the shadows still echoed in Yehi's mind as he prepared for his departure. He boarded the high-speed maglev train, destined for the prestigious Huadu University. Inside the carriage, he sensed the powerful auras of other top-tier students from across the nation. Suddenly, a thick mist began to fill the train, distorting the reality around them. Yehi realized they had been pulled into the Mirage Eye, a massive spiritual illusion realm. He found himself standing in the center of a ghost town filled with masked hunters. A pig-masked enemy lunged from the shadows with a rusted machete. Yehi retaliated by blasting a concentrated blue energy beam through the attacker's mask. He picked up a golden pendant from the remains, identifying it as a necessary trial item. He moved deeper into the ruins to find his schoolmate, Qing Shu, who was cornered on a rooftop. Standing in their way was the Dragon Mask, the unkillable boss of the trial. Yehi activated his armored titan transformation to match the boss's physical pressure. The 2 titans clashed, their collision sending shockwaves through the virtual city. Yehi landed a crushing blow that shattered the boss's helmet and internal core. As the boss dissolved, the illusion shattered, returning the students to the real train. The loudspeaker announced Yehi as the top scorer for slaying the untouchable boss. He walked off the train and onto the vast campus of Huadu University. In the mentor selection hall, 5 deans offered him scholarships to join their factions. Yehi ignored them all, his attention caught by a strange scent of blood coming from the garden. He found a small girl sitting under a tree, eating raw meat with a hollow expression. She looked at him and instantly released an aura of death that made his skin crawl. Recognizing her as the legendary grandmaster Gong Kei, Yehi knelt and asked to be her disciple. Gong Kei agreed, on the condition that he survive a single hour in her training room. They entered a high-gravity chamber where Yehi's martial energy was instantly suppressed. Gong Kei attacked with a speed that defied the laws of physics, striking him multiple times. Yehi spat out blood and activated his latest monster template to endure the assault. He unleashed a barrage of nuclear-infused punches to keep her at bay. Gong Kei laughed, finally seeing a student who could survive her killer's Bodhic heart technique. At the end of the hour, Yehi collapsed, but he had earned the right to be her student. She handed him a black identification badge, marking him as a special personnel of Huadu. Yehi began his daily routine of hellish training under the unhinged grandmaster. Every day he was forced to fight against mental illusions that tried to break his sanity. Through the suffering, his synchronization with the infinite monster template reached a new peak. He practiced the slashing technique until his blade could cut through solid energy barriers. Word of the monster student training under the crazy professor spread through the university. Yehi eventually met his old rivals, who were stunned by his rapid growth. He realized that the university was just another hunting ground for his evolution. The true game had indeed begun, and Yehi was no longer just a player. He was the king of beasts in the making, and the world would soon tremble. With a final deep breath, he prepared to take his place as the strongest master in history.